Hi, my name's Rich McNutt. I'm the author of the Hunter's Choices series. Hunter's Choices is about controlling the controllable factors of your hunt. Not necessarily about the newest gadgets out, but how to make those gadgets work best for you, for your style of hunting. What we're doing here today is we're going to be grinding up some venison into venison hamburger. And I use a 40% mix of pork with my venison. I don't use pork fat, I use just cheap cuts of pork that I can get from the grocery store. I've tried many different combinations of meat over the years, and this one works out great. So if you do want to do meatballs or if you want to do hamburger patties on the grill, this will become a great tasting treat. And most of the people that you invite over will not know that it's venison. And it's a real big kick when you cook up something and they find out it's venison on their third helping and they just quit eating right then and there. But you can read more about that in the book series. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut the bone out and I'm going to cut this meat into strips to fit in the grinder, and I'll rinse it off as I go. I have two rinse tanks, and then we'll set up the grinder behind me. Some of this pork is slightly frozen because we bought it on sale a couple weeks ago, which is okay. The slightly frozen meat tends to go through the grinder a little smoother. Now, the thickness you cut your strips is determined by the feed throat on your grinder. What you'll find is that the condition your animal was in when it was harvested will determine the flavor of the meat. Adrenaline is what causes that real wild, gamey taste. And you can refer to the Hunter's Choices book as to how to get that wild taste out of the meat. That is possible. But also you can refer to the Hunter's Choices website, and there's links there on how to butcher game in the field and how to design your cuts for when you get home to cut and wrap if you're into doing it by yourself. What I'm going to do is I'll cut up a couple pieces of pork and then I'll mix my venison in with it. My venison has already been cut up when I processed it, and then I froze it that way until later in the year when I have more time to make the hamburger. I'll splash a little bleach in the cleaning water to help clean up afterwards. One of the other things I did was I removed the rugs from the kitchen so I won't drip any blood on the rugs. It's a lot easier to clean up off the floor than it is off the rugs. So this is a bag of hamburger meat. Ziploc bags were a great invention. Some of these pieces didn't get cut into strips, so now this meat here looks like it came off the ribs. So you don't use, when I do butcher a deer, I have 3 cuts of meat. I have a roast, I have a steak, and then I have stew meat, which can also be turned into hamburger meat. Now I leave the fat part in because the meat is real lean to begin with. There's not necessarily flavor in the fat as much as, no, that's not fat, this here is a piece of shoulder blade. There's no flavor in the fat, but the fat holds it together when you start barbecuing, or if you want to make bratwurst or sausage. This is your first step. Don't have to be real particular about cutting with the grain of meat as if you were butchering steaks. Now that you have to be particular with, because this is all going to go through the grinder. Except for this piece, which is a piece of gristle from a shoulder blade. Okay, I've got a small homeless grinder. One of the first things you want to do is to spray a little lube in it before you get started. Now if you were making sausage or brats or anything like that, you would be adding some spices to the meat. I'm using a medium size grind. For brats and hot dogs and sausage, you would use a small size grind, one with smaller holes in it. But it's set up. Now this is my plunger to push the meat down through the grinder. This is not a very quiet operation, but it sure is a lot easier than sitting here cranking forever, which was my style for quite a few years. Some venison and pork. Okay, after you get a little bit ground up, take and mix it up by hand, but I'm gonna, since my hands are dry, I'm gonna put the information on the bag. So this is about 30% pork, and it's venison, and it's April. So right on the bag first. The pork and venison still isn't mixed up real well, so I'll do that now. Scott really likes this. I don't like getting my hands in it. So I use a spoon. But a 1 quart freezer bag is roughly a pound of meat. And I load my freezer bags so that they'll lay flat in the freezer and I can stack them up versus filling up a round tube. This is pretty much it. From here on, you just keep doing the same thing over and over until you get your pile of meat gone. Out of what I had in these 2 sinks, I'll probably get 15 to 18 pounds of hamburger. You don't want to overfill the bag because the meat expands when it freezes. And then it'll open the bag. So there we have it. 1 pound of ground venison mixed with pork. Going in the freezer for later use.